Señores, finalmente el pueblo estadounidense ha empezado a despertar. Están empezando a ver con claridad que la edad de Trump es un factor determinante en su incapacidad de pensar con claridad. Por fin estamos viendo nuevas encuestas que reflejan esta realidad. Encuestas como de YouGov, que pregunta ¿la edad de Trump está afectando su presidencia? Pues adivinen, el 57% respondió que sí. Solo un 31% dijo que no. No es para menos. Las habilidades cognitivas de Trump. Su comportamiento completamente desquiciado. Estamos hablando de alguien que publica cosas diciendo que el expresidente Biden fue ejecutado en 2020 y que fue reemplazado por una especie de robot. Literalmente, amigos, Donald Trump compartió esta teoría conspirativa, ¿no? Y hasta la promovió. Y lo más grave es que ahora hasta el New York Times ha estado cubriendo esto. Lo publicaron en una portada. Trump amplifica teoría conspirativa sobre robot Biden. O sea, es decir, Trump republicó una afirmación falsa de que Biden fue ejecutado y que fue reemplazado por un clon robótico. Este tipo de comportamientos, amigos, son los que no pueden quedar simplemente señalados y luego pasar a otro tema. Hay que cerrar el círculo. Hay que explicar cómo es que estas locuras afectan directamente al pueblo estadounidense. El problema no es solo lo que se dice, es lo que se hace. La manera en la cual, por ejemplo, ha utilizado los aranceles ha causado un caos económico. La forma en la cual ha destruido instituciones claves del gobierno federal junto con Elon Musk. Su política exterior débil y desastrosa, que ha hecho menos seguro el país. Sus ataques directos a programas esenciales como lo es el Medicaid, el Medicare, el Seguro Social y hasta los cupones de alimentos. Estamos hablando de una persona completamente fuera de sí. Y ahí, amigos, es donde toca hacer el contraste. Con el expresidente Biden, vamos a dar el ejemplo, había un sistema predecible, ¿no? O sea, había un sistema basado en valores, con un orden. Tal vez uno no estuviera de acuerdo con todas sus políticas, pero nunca se temía que despertara un día y simplemente decidiera imponer un arancel por Twitter sin consultar al Congreso. O sea, no había ese nivel de caos. Con Biden se podría decir que sabíamos dónde estaba parado el país. Y los datos lo respaldaron. Hubo crecimiento del PIB más rápido del mundo. Se crearon más de 16 millones de empleos. Se redujo el desempleo a mínimos históricos. Se lanzaron más de 40,000 proyectos de infraestructura y se bajaron los precios de los medicamentos. Mientras Trump sigue llenando el espacio mediático ¿con qué? Con basura. Uno no puede evitar recordar que hace unas semanas decía que iba a reducir el precio de los medicamentos en un 80 o un 90%, ¿no? Por órdenes ejecutivas. ¿Dónde está? Nunca pasó.
Starting today, the United States will no longer subsidize the health care of foreign countries and will no longer tolerate profiteering and price gouging. For the first time in many years, we'll slash the cost of prescription drugs and we will bring fairness to America. Drug prices will come down. We're going to cut out the middlemen and facilitate the direct sale of drugs at the most favored nation price directly to the American citizen.
I'm just so grateful to be here today. I never thought that this would happen in my lifetime.
This is the most powerful executive order on pharmacy pricing and healthcare ever in the history of our nation. By getting our allies to pay a bit more, we'll course correct a problem that's gotten out of hand.
We're standing up for the American consumer who's been paying far too high prices for far too long.
We didn't take an oath to heal patients and then watch their life get ruined financially. We're going to do everything we can at the FDA to support this executive order. It's transformative. Thank you, Mr. President.
O cuando dijo que iba a terminar la guerra en Ucrania en 24 horas. ¿Dónde está eso? Tampoco ha ocurrido. Lo que sí está ocurriendo, amigos, es que países como Ucrania están dando pasos decisivos. Como cuando recientemente realizaron una operación militar exitosa, ¿no? En la historia moderna. Han destruido como el 30 y 40% de la fuerza aérea estratégica de Rusia. Como 40 aviones rusos destruidos y miles de millones en daños. Amigos, eso es lo que crea seguridad para el mundo libre. Mientras Trump solo está publicando ¿qué? Imágenes de sí mismo, hablando de la UFC, jugando golf con profesionales, compitiendo para ver quién lanza más lejos la pelota. Es como dicen, ¿no? Mientras Roma ardía, Nerón tocaba el violín. Pues mientras Trump destruye las alianzas internacionales de Estados Unidos, él juega golf. Patético. No nos olvidemos de las encuestas. Vamos a ver la de Atlas Intel, por ejemplo. Los niveles de favorabilidad lo dicen todo. El expresidente Obama tiene hasta más 10 puntos. Tenemos a Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, más 4. Trump, menos 11. J.D. Vance, menos 14. Por más que los medios quieran atacar a demócratas como Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, como a Bernie Sanders, como a Obama, como a Biden, los datos demuestran: el pueblo está con ellos. Porque el pueblo quiere líderes que hablen claro, que defiendan principios, que representen valores reales. Y si nos vamos a los resultados electorales, en elecciones especiales a nivel estatal, municipal o congresional, amigos, los demócratas han estado ganando, y ganando por mucho, superando por amplios márgenes a Trump en distritos donde él había ganado antes. En esas mismas encuestas de Atlas Intel para la Cámara de Representantes, los demócratas están 51%, republicanos 42%. Y eso, amigos, puede crecer todavía mucho más, especialmente con este desastre del presupuesto que están empujando los republicanos. Entonces, lo que por ejemplo Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez y Bernie Sanders han estado haciendo con su gira, sus discursos, hablando directamente al pueblo, defendiendo los valores del Partido Demócrata, demostrando cómo pueden entregar resultados, eso, amigos, puede hacer una gran diferencia. Y en medio, ¿no?, de todo esto, tenemos a Elon Musk, que ha estado tratando de distanciarse del desastre que él mismo ayudó a crear, queriendo ahora lavarse las manos, ¿no?, diciendo que no está de acuerdo con todo lo que hizo y lo que está haciendo este régimen de Trump. Tampoco quiere ser asociado con eso. Pero él fue el porrista número 1, pagó como 300 millones por eso. O sea, tiene que asumir su responsabilidad. Y qué bueno que hay ciertos periodistas que tienen el valor de preguntarle por eso, porque sería una negligencia periodística no hacerlo. Y Musk, por supuesto, no quiere hablar del tema, ¿no? Pero tiene que hacerlo, le toca. Y es más, hasta debería hacerlo frente al Congreso, aunque seguramente los republicanos no tengan el valor de citarlo. Voy a darles unos ejemplos. Veamos este primer clip.
The interview didn't get off to a smooth start.
I noticed that all of your businesses involve a lot of components, a lot of parts. Do the tariffs and the trade wars affect any of this?
Tariffs always affect things a little bit.
Wondering what your thought is on the ban on foreign students, the proposal. I mean, you were one of those kids, right?
Yeah, I think we want to stick to, the subject of the day, which is like spaceships, as opposed to, presidential policy.
Oh, okay. I was told anything's good, but...
No.
Y de nuevo, mientras Ucrania defiende su soberanía, mientras la coalición internacional, países como Alemania, Francia, Reino Unido, España, Canadá, Australia, se unen para querer frenar a Rusia, ¿qué está haciendo Trump? Publicando tonterías y hablando de golf.
And, it's not like I agree with everything the administration does. So it's like, I agree with much of what the administration does, but we have differences of opinion. There's things that I don't entirely agree with. But it's difficult for me to bring that up in an interview because then it creates a bone of contention. So then I'm a little stuck in a bind where I'm like, well, I don't want to, speak out against the administration, but I don't want to. I also don't want to take responsibility for everything the administration is doing.
Es como dicen, amigos, mientras Roma ardía, Nerón tocaba el violín. Bueno, y por si fuese poco, ¿no? Ahora Marjorie Taylor Greene está indignada porque la FDA aprobó una nueva vacuna contra el COVID-19 para mayores de 65 años y personas con condiciones médicas. Que sale a decir que eso no es MAGA. ¿Qué significa eso? No tiene sentido. Pero bueno, en otro momento hablaremos de eso. Y bueno, para cerrar, otra noticia sobre esto interesante es que la Unión Europea tampoco se ha estado quedando de brazos cruzados. Trump quiere duplicar los aranceles al acero del 25 al 50% Y hasta está mintiendo diciendo que Nippon Steel ha estado invirtiendo en US Steel, cuando en realidad, amigos, se trata de una adquisición. Y ahora los europeos están listos para poder imponer contramedidas. ¿Ven lo que quiero decir? Trump está destruyendo todas las negociaciones comerciales posibles. India quiere acuerdos con Estados Unidos, pero Trump solo quiere tomar sin dar nada. Cuando India le pide concesiones mínimas, él los insulta. Les miente diciendo que sus logros causaron una tregua entre India y Pakistán. Y con Europa pasa lo mismo, ¿no? Los negociadores quieren acuerdos, pero Trump llega, revienta todo con sus aranceles, primero un 25%, ahora un 50%, y luego ¿qué hace? Se esconde. Es simple, señores. Actúa como un adulto. Líder con estabilidad. Pero eso, al parecer, es mucho pedir. Ahora pasemos al siguiente tema, señores, porque en los últimos meses se han visto cómo figuras cercanas a Trump han estado promoviendo una, digamos, entre comillas, limpieza dentro del FBI, dentro del Departamento de Justicia. Se han cerrado unidades claves como la de corrupción pública. También se ha disuelto una oficina interna que vigilaba abusos dentro del FBI. Y para colmo, muchos de los agentes con mucha experiencia en lo que es contraterrorismo han sido desplazados. ¿Casualidad? No lo creo, porque se acusa al director del FBI, Kash Patel, de utilizar la agencia como arma para favorecer a Trump. Veamos de qué se trata.
Mary, there is also quite a bit of concern about readiness, about whether the expertise is there in order to keep this country safe. How do you see the purges, the changes at the FBI?
Yeah, one of the things also I think that's troublesome is there is a lack of transparency here, right? This reporting in the New York Times, and of course also what Ken has just shared from his own reporting, you know, the reporters, journalists are having to find either current or former officials within the FBI to learn about this. And the American people deserve to know if there's been sort of a massive sort of resource shift away from national security. That's counterterrorism efforts, counterintelligence efforts, the things that we rely uniquely on the FBI for here in the U.S. And if that's going to be a resource shift toward immigration or toward other threats, people need to know about that. That's an important part of government transparency. And it's hard to say right now what our readiness will be when even still from the very good reporting from Ken and from the New York Times, it's still unclear to me exactly how many have left, how many have been forced out, how many have been moved into other positions. And I think important here also is that what we're talking about, at least based on my experience working directly with the FBI for a number of years, people don't just suddenly become, an assistant director in the counterterrorism section as a transfer from some other place. Like, these are people who have been spending their careers and sometimes decades doing counterterrorism work, right? So they not only know all of their sort of similar situated investigators with, across the FBI, but also the rest of our intelligence community and also our allies abroad, right? So they've got those relationships and that muscle memory and that experience that could really suffer here.
So there's the national security side of it, Mary, but there's also the public corruption side of it. I mentioned a moment ago, the disbanding of the public corruption, the federal unit at the Washington field office, the same one that investigated Donald Trump and his efforts in the 2020 election. I wonder the message that is sending that there are certain things that are off limits. And it's not just that aspect of it. There's also the disbanding of an internal watchdog group that was established in 2020. They were responsible for helping ensure that employees comply with laws, regulations, and policies in general. They've been absorbed by the inspection division. By the way, they examined agent shootings and allegations of misconduct. When you take that, you take the public corruption side. You also take the types of people that Donald Trump has been pardoning lately, a lot of white-collar criminals who've been accused of fraud, who've been accused of tax evasion, who've been accused of corruption. I wonder, does that send a message to FBI agents that public corruption is maybe not a priority?
Well, yes, and particularly when you also couple that, another thing to couple that with is what's happened at the Department of Justice, right? With disbanding the offices that focused, for example, are not disbanding, but refocusing the offices that looked into foreign corrupt trade practices, for example, and Foreign Agent Registration Act cases and other types of that latter is less of a sort of typical public corruption crime, but it does involve it, and Foreign Corrupt Trade Practices Act cases, those are replete with corruption. So it does show that we're not going to be focusing on that when the department under Attorney General Pam Bondi and her deputy and and also Emile Bove announced these various changes, sort of away from corporate fraud and white collar crime. Now you're seeing that disbanding of those in the FBI that were focused on those things. It absolutely sends that message. And as you noted, also in combination with the pardons. The other office that you mentioned, that is an office that was very important, and it was established in part in response to rulings by the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, right? There were some problems that were brought to the attention of the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, and part of these efforts were to have within this new office, within a few years ago within the FBI, were to try to make sure that there was better oversight, that surveillance would not be abused or misused, whether intentionally or unintentionally. And so to have that go away, also in combination with talking about weaponizing the Department of Justice. Of course, they're saying that's not what they're doing, but as you see who they're going after, and Dan Bongino talking about bringing up, kind of old cases to reinvestigate involving the Russia investigation, involving the leak of the Dobbs opinion, things that have already been investigated. This combination sounds very alarming because if you do not have robust compliance with the guidelines and the rules and the Constitution, you could have some real overreach.
David, I see you nodding vigorously. I want to play a little bit of Dan Bongino. This is a soundbite, a number of sound bites when he was talking about the FBI before he got the position of deputy director. This is from our friends on Jen Psaki's show.
There's no longer any question the FBI conspired to crush people's civil rights. The FBI has not thought any of this through. Here now we're starting to dig into, has the FBI thought this through? Folks, I'm sorry that we're at the point where I have to tell you not to talk to the FBI if you are a Republican. We do not live with a serious law enforcement entity anymore at the FBI.
So we're talking right now about the FBI, and I want to get you on this, but take a broader look at this and what the Trump administration, not just at the FBI or DOJ, has been doing of late. And this is, I think, worth a read from The Atlantic. Trump and his administration have abolished agencies and imposed sweeping tariffs, even when they don't have the legal authority to do so. They are deporting people without due process. Top aides are floating the idea of suspending the writ of habeas corpus, one of the most important constitutional protections against unlawful detention. Judges who are the target of threats from the president fear for their safety. So do the very few Republicans who are willing to assert their independence from Trump. This is an article in The Atlantic that talks about the unconstitutional conservatives wondering what in the world happened to the Republican Party.
Well, he's not the only one wondering about that. I mean, look, what we have to do right now is distinguish between the Republican Party and conservatism, because the two are increasingly far apart. And it's also true that the Republican Party and reality are increasingly far apart. I mean, when you look at the critique of the FBI from the MAGA right during the Biden years in particular, and during much of the Trump years, it was really predicated on two absolute fictions. Fiction number one was that there was no reason to investigate the Trump campaign's potential ties to Russia, that was all just concocted, but there was ample reason to investigate. And then fiction number two was that the wave of prosecutions of the January 6ers, for example, Trump and his allies after January 6th, that wave of prosecutions was a wave of prosecutions of innocent people. So if you're living through in those two fictions, if you think that those two things, which are completely false, that the Russia investigation was never merited, that the prosecutions of those who tried to steal the election were never merited, that's how they hooked the Republican public into believing that the FBI nobody's saying is perfect, but a flawed institution that was generally doing a lot of good things for the American people was in fact nothing but an ideological engine of oppression of Republicans. And that's what you see from Dan Bongino. And it's just completely at odds with reality. And yet, if you talk to Republicans around this country, that has embedded in them. It is embedded in them from the beginning that both the Russia investigation and the investigation of the people who tried to steal the election, all of that was weaponization. And so in many ways that they think that the Biden administration had corrupted the FBI and they're setting it right. And that's the mindset, but that mindset is rooted in some fiction.
Is that pervasive? I mean, I'm talking about the old school Republicans, or at least the long-standing lawmakers in Congress, the ones who have been there from before Donald Trump got around, not just the Congress people who got elected post-Donald Trump or in Donald Trump's image. Is that how the John Thunes of the world, the John Cornyn's think? Do they believe this? Because
no, I don't think the John Thunes or the John Cornyns of the world think this.
So why don't we hear more from them? Is it just because they're worried about a primary, or are they worried about their safety?
All of the above. I mean, one of the things that we have seen from Republican politicians, there's a couple of things in play here. One is we're now about 10 years into the Trump era since 2015 when he came down the escalator. And there's one thing that they have seen with crystal clarity that applies to politicians, and that is every politician in the Republican Party who has stood up to Trump has no career left anymore. So the basic embedded view in the Republican elected ranks is defy Trump and you end your career. That's just what it is. And then the other thing that they have seen is that Trump keeps coming back. He keeps winning. He won unexpectedly in 2016. He came back and won again in 2024 after he triggered a violent attack on the Capitol. So a lot of them are just in this position where they think you can never count out Donald Trump. Donald Trump is always going to kind of win in the end. And so they also have that serious fear for their personal safety. Peter Meyer, former congressman, said this right after 2020, that there were many members of Congress who are voting not to certify the election, not because they thought there was anything wrong with the election, but they were worried about their families. And so this is a very real thing out there. Thankfully, so far, the judges have been largely immune from this. The judges have not capitulated in the way that Congress has capitulated. But even amongst those members who know that there was a lot of improper activity in the 2016 campaign, that there was an enormous amount of illegal activity in 2020, for example, they know this, and yet they will not say it. They are not willing to, in their view, commit career suicide and potentially put themselves at risk.
Lo notaron, ¿no? Desmantelar la unidad de corrupción pública, amigos, es un movimiento que huele a intereses personales. Especialmente si recordamos que esa misma unidad fue la que investigó casualmente a Trump por su intento de interferencia en las elecciones 2020. Esto no es simplemente una reestructuración técnica. Esto es una señal muy clara. Es como si Trump y su círculo cercano estuvieran diciendo: no queremos que nos vuelvan a investigar, así que eliminemos a quienes podrían hacerlo. ¿Y saben qué es lo más peligroso? Que esto normaliza la idea de que se puede utilizar el poder presidencial para eliminar la rendición de cuentas. O sea, es exactamente lo contrario a lo que se supone que debería suceder en una democracia sana. No se trata solo de Trump, ¿no? Porque hay quienes defienden diciendo que el FBI estaba antes politizado o que ya no era confiable. Y claro, el FBI ha cometido muchos errores en el pasado. Eso nadie lo niega, yo no lo niego. Pero el problema no es querer reformar una institución. Aquí el problema es cómo y con qué intención lo hacen. Trump no quiere transparencia, él quiere control. Quiere reemplazar a profesionales con lealtad institucional por personas que le sean leales, pero a él. Y eso es muy peligroso. Solo imaginen si cada presidente pudiera hacer eso sin límites. Deshacerse de quienes lo investigan, proteger a aliados corruptos, porque sí, muchos de sus indultos fueron pues a gente condenada por fraude, por evasión de impuestos. Y debilitar la vigilancia interna del gobierno. Señores, eso no es liderazgo, eso es autoritarismo disfrazado ¿de qué? De limpieza. Otro punto alarmante, ¿no? Es el silencio de muchos republicanos moderados. Yo me pregunto, ¿dónde está John Thune? Los John Cornyn. ¿Por qué no alzan la voz? La respuesta es simple. y triste. Miedo. ¿Miedo a qué? Miedo a perder elecciones, miedo a represalias, miedo a Trump. Y sí, se entiende, hasta un punto, ¿no? Pero si los líderes políticos no son capaces de defender la institución, entonces, ¿quién lo va a hacer? ¿Para qué están ellos? Es su trabajo. La postura es clara, señores. Lo que está pasando con el FBI no es una reforma, es una purga política, la misma que inició en este segundo mandato de Trump. El objetivo no es mejorar la justicia, es blindarse del escrutinio, de las investigaciones. No se puede normalizar que un presidente quiera controlar las agencias que lo pueden investigar a él. Eso es inaceptable, eso es peligroso, es profundamente antidemocrático. Pero bueno, ¿qué opinan ustedes? ¿Creen que Trump realmente busca combatir la corrupción o solo quiere protegerse de futuras investigaciones? ¿A ustedes les preocupa lo que está pasando con el FBI, con el Departamento de Justicia? Los invito a que me dejen sus opiniones en la caja de comentarios. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarme hasta el final de este video. Recuerda, como siempre, dale like, suscríbete a nuestro canal y comparte este video. Hasta luego.